Nancy Grace had the rapper 2 Chainz on her show to debate weed legalization. This is an instant classic. Let's watch.
But why do you advocate legalization of pot when you hear stories like what I'm talking about?
Well, from the stories that I just heard you talk about, they had alcohol included, which we all know, cause you to black out, forget things, and have memory loss. They also dealt with irresponsible people. I don't think that you could put an umbrella on the whole community off these few incidents that you just named.
Well, what community is that? The potheads?
The smokers, the stoners community. I just feel like you can't use these particular stories to define everybody that has recreational use.
I'm not defining everybody, okay? So don't throw me in that pot and stew me. What I'm saying is legalizing pot ends up in stories like this. And you, with so many people looking up to you, advocate legalization of pot. And I don't get it. I mean, I've seen video of you smoke at a big fat doobie. I mean, I've read your lyrics. I know what you say in your songs. But when you hear stories like the mom and the dad on the front porch, the baby dies in a fire.
I have 2 beautiful little girls, and I'm a great father. I just feel like, everybody should basically take care of their own. You have kids, too, as well, right? So it's about governing your own household. It's about taking care of your own property. It's about having some kind of structure in anything, any drug.
I hear you, 2 Chainz. I hear you. But what I'm saying to you is this. People listen to you. And while you may be able to get high and your children are kept away from that and they're not growing up like that, is my guess, is my hope, other people don't have the advantages that you have. Okay, Liz, show me the video of Jessica Gamble out of Ohio. This mom, look at this 2 Chainz, this mom making her 2-year-old child smoke pot. Watch this. I want you to watch it. Look at this baby.
That's what I was telling you earlier about trying to classify her as something that we will all do once we would smoke a joint. I feel like she was irresponsible. I feel like she was a bonehead. That was an imbecile move. Anybody that loves their kid definitely knows not to put them in harm's way, and that's what she did. So I don't agree with that at all.
You know what this reminds me of? It feels like an episode of South Park, doesn't it? Where you have Nancy Grace, who's just this over-the-top crazy person who's super animated and is like acting times a trillion. And you have 2 Chainz, who's like this like calm voice of reason who's trying to explain to her. And she's like, but what about the people who give their kids joints? Okay, there's so many parts of that I love because she's like, I'm not defining everybody as the extreme, so don't you dare put me in that pot and stew me. Or whatever the fuck she said. And then what does she do? She goes on to do exactly that. I'm not defining everybody by the extreme, but see what happens when you legalize weed? Kids smoke joints. I rest my case. You just did exactly what he said you shouldn't do, and what you said you shouldn't do. Because you have no other argument, Nancy. You have no other argument. He's basically saying, don't paint all users like idiots and addicts, because that's not the reality. And understand something. Another good point he makes is about alcohol. If you want to show a picture of somebody on screen, a little girl who's holding a joint, you know how many more pictures there are of kids holding a beer? My friends have had those pictures hanging on their refrigerators when they were growing up, where their dad gives them a can of beer, like, hold this, son. Click the picture. Later it goes on the fridge. And come on, a worse drug for you is alcohol. That's a fact. More people die from alcohol poisoning on a weekly basis than have ever died from marijuana overdose. In fact, there's never been a confirmed case of dying from a marijuana overdose. So how is it that one drug, which kills a tremendous number of people, that's legal and nobody bats an eyelash or questions it, but the one that killed nobody, all of a sudden that's evil, evil, keep it away from us, keep it away from the kids, keep it illegal forever. And look, this is coming from a guy, everybody listening to the show, or most of you who listen to the show, know I've spoken about this before. Weed is not my drug, right? It's not my thing. But that doesn't mean that I can't acknowledge the facts about it and understand the reality about it and be open-minded enough to know that we don't make laws based off of my personal opinion. The fuck does my personal opinion have to do with what you should be able to do in a so-called free society? So if you're going to show that picture of a little girl holding a joint, show 8 pictures of a little kid holding a beer. And then the most important things to remember about this is that 80 to 90% of all drug users are moderate users who can function in daily life, pay their bills, take care of their kids. Now, you might say, whoa, but come on, man. There are some drugs that come on, they don't really fall into that category. Cocaine, cocaine's a hell of a drug, right? Well, this isn't me speaking, understand. This isn't me. This is Dr. Carl Hart, who's an expert, who's a scientist, who studies these specific things, and he's the one that says 80 to 90% of all drug users. Yes, there is such thing as a moderate cocaine user. Yes, there is such thing as a moderate Xanax user or Adderall user. Yes, there is such thing as a moderate opiate user, pops 2 OxyContin pills in a day. Yes, there's such thing as a moderate marijuana user and moderate drinkers. Again, 80 to 90% of all drug users are moderate. And the most important point is, you ready for this? Very simple. Freedom. Because look, again, the very basic idea, which I don't see anything that can counter this, is the idea that your body is your temple. It's okay to not like it if people do certain drugs, but that doesn't mean you get to lock them in a fucking cage and keep them there for 15 years. That's insane. That makes you a fascist, tyrannical person who wants to control what's going on in people's minds, what's happening with their consciousness. You don't have to like it if other people take drugs. You just have to not put them in jail. I mean, the whole idea of freedom is your body is your temple. You can put in your body whatever you want to put in your body as long as you're not hurting anybody else. But somebody like Nancy Grace is just caught up in the momentum of society. She's so used to living in a society that has marijuana illegal that she just accepts it as an of course kind of thing, a duh kind of thing. She's like, what do you mean? Of course weed is illegal. It's supposed to be illegal. It's weed. What are you talking about? But Jack Daniels and Jim Beam and tequila and vodka and alcohol, oh, you could kill yourself before noon by drinking a quart of it. I don't give a fuck. You're allowed to do that. But smoke 1 joint and act responsibly? Never. You can never do that. Hypocrisy is the word for it. 2 Chainz destroyed her.